Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Brian O'Neill.
And glad to have with us on our live line, Democrat candidate for Congress, Tracy Mitrano. We had Congressman Tom Reed's press call on last week, and it was pretty controversial. So we figured we'd better get the other side on for this one. Tracy Mitrano, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, Brian.
Well, Tracy Mitrano, your thoughts on what Congressman Tom Reed had to say at that press conference a week ago up in Buffalo about, well, I guess you'd say that Reed is accusing the governor of cutting off funding, and Reed said that resulted in the death of a person who had a heart attack. And according to Congressman Tom Reed, the governor cut off the funding, and it weakened the fire department, and they were not able to get someone to the hospital on time. That's such a big accusation. Wanted to get the Democrats on to respond to it.
Sure. This is a serious issue, of course, the safety of our roads. And I know those roads very well. I lived out in Chautauqua for 3 months earlier this year. I know those roads very, very well. I'm glad you're going to give me a minute, because to really appreciate what's going on, it takes a minute to dig down. It's political theater, first of all, and it is an old pattern that Reed has to use people and use issues either to deflect from his poor quality of his leadership or from other responsibilities, or for political divide, again, for party purposes. First, he's playing with the location, Brian. Originally, he started, it was Route 90, and that is where there are serious problems with the road. But it's not even in his district. It's in Craig Higgins' district. But, the two of them go on political commercials together about bipartisanship. So, of course, he's not going to say anything about why isn't Congressman Higgins doing anything to help his district. He just wants to go for what is politically popular in Western New York, and that is to criticize the governor. So then after he was noted for talking about something outside of his district, we got down to what's particularly going on. He and the Republican machine are supporting in a special election for the state Senate 57th district. That's out in Allegheny, Cat County, Chautauqua, and a little piece of Livingston. The Republican candidate, whose name is George Borrello, he's a respected businessman, and he is now the county supervisor with considerable authority in that role. And I think Mr. Borrello, has made a tactical mistake to get Tom Reed and the big political Republican machine out there to run the communications in his campaign. Why? I don't think Mr. Borrello knows that Mr. Reed has a reputation for this kind of divisive, sometimes childish, trumped-up political theater that lost him the endorsement of the Corning leader in his own hometown last year. And so now he's using it out there in the western part of the district, and it's going to give the Democratic candidate a boost because people can see through that. The last person in a position of authority to be arguing about infrastructure is Tom Reed. He has been in that office, it will be 10 years, and he has purposely done nothing in the area of infrastructure, along with affordable health care and education and environment and jobs for this district. So what else is going on? He knows that, and he's trying to deflect the obvious criticism I will make of him on that point. To create the Goldberg machine, the Rube Goldberg analysis, is playing on the grief of that poor family in Salamanca. And people see through that too. And to be using the Republican machine he has in Salamanca and in Cat County is very unfortunate, because it is pitting good people against each other instead of working together as a community. Let me say this. Real leadership, not fake leadership, would call the players together expressed genuinely the public safety concern and the desire to work together genuinely across party lines, not just when he wants to talk about being partisan, and resolve this issue, which, by the way, is a very complex issue between the Seneca Nation and the governor and the state funding for the casinos and taxes and so forth and so on. But this is not how you resolve very complicated issues. And it just replays what we know about Tom Reed. He uses people. His medical debt collection business uses people. He's using George Borrello. He's using the Seneca Nation. He's using the grief of this family in Salamanca. This is his MO, and people see through it.
Talking to Democrat congressional candidate Tracy Mitrano. Moving on to the issue of gun control. Congressman Reed, I believe, was on MSNBC either yesterday or the day before talking about that. Now, this, of course, follows news that Senator Kirsten Gillibrand is calling for gun control too. Let's hear a clip of what Congressman Tom Reed said on MSNBC, and then let's get your response.
Well, I think it's a good indication that the president and many of us want to do something on this issue. We care deeply about the situation and the issue of gun violence, and maybe there's some common ground if you focus on the who solutions, not the what solutions. So making sure that people don't have access to weapons that have shown they don't have the right to a Second Amendment.
So something and nothing are next door neighbors. So it sounds like to me that you're alluding to the mental illness issue. Are you saying that we shouldn't do anything about the quantity of guns and guns that are available to people?
I'm a firm believer in the Second Amendment. I stand with the freedom represented in the Second Amendment, and I think you could talk and find common ground on those that are exhibiting psychopathic type of indications and making sure they don't have access to a weapon. People that are criminals engaging in criminal activity with a weapon, I think that could also maybe mitigate the issue and really do something about solving this problem.
So your response there, Tracy Mitrano?
Let's put it in context. Mr. Reed is a classic example of big PAC money representation in Congress. What he is trying to do, using the Second Amendment, which we all believe in also, and assuming what that means when he says believing in the Second Amendment. There is no amendment in our Constitution that allows for mass murder or allows for the conditions that are currently in this country that are creating the circumstances of these mass murders that are out of proportion globally and are at a peak where we have this morning 135 companies writing to the White House to say, do something concrete about this. The divide between the who and the what that Senator Gillibrand very keenly picked up with what he is saying is a false divide. It's both. We need good due process red flag laws. We need better mental health care in this country. Hey, we need affordable health care in this country, which Tom Reed votes against every single time. The what is also part of the problem. Research shows it's the availability of guns, and in particular, as we've seen in these many instances now, military-style weapons available on the public market that is part of how we have mass murders in this country over and over and over again, from children in kindergarten to people walking in Walmart. Both are problems. Why can't we work towards solutions that are going to work instead of playing political games? And I'm sorry, Tom Reed uses the Second Amendment. He is using the victims of gun violence. He is using good people in this district who are good hunters, own guns, part of their tradition. It's my family tradition too. But he uses it. Why? Because he wants to stay in the orbit of the big NRA money. A quick little coda here, Brian. I grew up reading the NRA magazine because my father got it. It was sat there with Newsweek and Time. Something changed from when I was a kid reading that magazine, and it was about gun safety, to political power and money, money, money. taking precedence over people. And that's what Tom Reed is all about. He's a big mouthpiece for big NRA money.
Democrat Tracy Mitrano is our guest this morning. Tracy Mitrano, the weapon that comes up the most, I think, as far as what gun control advocates want to ban is the AR-15. Do you have a view on these AR-15 weapons?
Yeah, I spoke to many hunters. I mean, first I went back to my own family when I was considering going into politics and asked them about this. And I spoke to a number of gun enthusiasts. And let me tell you, there is a divide. I have asked gun enthusiasts to support the sale of them. Don't they increase the possibility of more people being killed in these mass shooting circumstances? And they said no. So I started watching very carefully because there's another group of gun enthusiast people, hunters, people I have gone to shooting places with in Odessa and other areas around this district. And they don't think you need this kind of military-style weapon to shoot a deer or a bear, if you've got one coming down the hill, is threatening your home, or squirrels, or rabbits. That's what we used to eat a lot of. Or my father used to shoot ducks. You don't need an AR-15 for it. And serious hunters, serious gun enthusiasts, serious people who enjoy guns as a sport do not believe that you need these kinds of guns in order to enjoy your sport or be able to kill your game. So I really think we need to look at a lot of issues in this area. Certainly the use of those kinds of guns is one. And let's go back to the point before. It's money. It's about the gun manufacturers and sellers making money. Brian, my position on how to address this issue is to repeal the immunity that Congress gave gun manufacturers and sellers in 2005 to civil suits. If this is how we get product safety in this country, we have safer cars because of lawsuits. We have safer washing machines. We could go down the entire list. But the people in this country are prohibited from using a basic fundamental right to be able to take a case to court and have a jury of their peers decide whether or not, for example, these kinds of guns are per se negligent and therefore should not be on the open market. It's time for Congress to repeal that legislation. Tom Reed would be the last person in the world to vote for it because he's so in the NRA pocket. Put me in Congress, put us in Congress, and we can work seriously towards addressing mass murders and bring these incidents down, hopefully end them, but certainly bring them down so they are not practically bi-weekly occurrences in this country.
Talking to Democrat congressional candidate Tracy Mitrano, who's got a campaign event this evening in Corning. We're going to talk about that when we get back. We're going to take a quick break and check the forecast. Stay with us.
These are great days at Maple City Dodge. Jeep Adventure Days and Ram Power Days. Lease a 2019 Jeep Cherokee Latitude Plus 4x4. Only $189 for 42 months with $3,139 down. Some restrictions apply. See dealer for complete details. Is a Ram more your thing? 20% off select Ram trucks. That's right, 20% off. And huge savings off the rest of the Ram inventory. Take a test drive at Maple City Dodge in Hornell, where you get the real deal every time.
Checking in now, meteorologist Rob Carroll. We had a lot of thunder and lightning overnight, Rob. You called that one right. How's it looking for today?
It's still looking a bit unsettled, particularly this morning, Brian. The disturbance that helped produce those showers and thunderstorms overnight, it's still strung out over the top of us. What we've got is kind of a boundary between very warm air stretching from Virginia all the way to Texas and Kansas, and then cool air from the Dakotas through northern New York State and New England. Now, along that boundary, that's where we've got the showers and storms. New England, New York State, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and the Dakotas. And all that energy has to slide east along the boundary. So we're going to kind of go back and forth between nice day, bad day, nice day, bad day. And then by the weekend, it looks like we get 2 nice days in a row. Scattered showers this morning. They'll taper off. It'll be mostly cloudy this afternoon. We're going to be cool, 65 to 70. We turn partly cloudy later tonight. We're 50 to 55. Tomorrow, lots of clouds, breezy, 70 to 75. Another round of showers will come through tomorrow night, breezy, 60 to 65. Then turning partly sunny and breezy with a high of 75 to 80 on Saturday. More sunshine and warmer Sunday. Brian, sunrise this morning was at 6:47. Sunset tonight at 7:27.
Back with Democrat congressional candidate Tracy Mitrano. Tracy, you've got a campaign event today. What was it, 5 to 7 in Corning?
It is, Brian, and hopefully the weather will clear sufficiently that we can have it over in the Gateway. If it still is raining or very threatening of rain, we will move it over to the Radisson in Corning, and I invite everyone to come to the event. We're going to have some good speakers. And then I invite everyone to come over to the Radisson, rain or shine. At about 7 o'clock, we're going to have an after party there. I would love for people around the area to come down, certainly supporters, but also people who are still curious about who's going to represent them best in Congress, and even people who may not have voted for me last time but want to get to know me for me instead of the face that Mr. Reid created with all of his big campaign money about me that had a lot of untruth associated with it, to say the least. So I would love for everyone to feel invited to come down to this event. It's being a citizen, it's being part of the process, and we welcome that.
Talking to Democrat congressional candidate Tracy Mitrano. Tracy, yesterday your opponent, Congressman Tom Reid, had a couple of tweets. It says, don't believe the recession hype. The economy is booming after tax cuts and from President Donald Trump and his smart but aggressive deregulation agenda. Did you want to respond to that?
Sure. I think the economy has been working for some people who have substantial investments in the stock market, but it's still not working. Even in its robust mode, it is still not working for a lot of people, and especially people in this district. Again, we have been ill-served by Mr. Reid. He's done nothing to address health care, education, infrastructure, to bring jobs here into the district. So we have a lot of people, and I really do mean a lot of people, who are working 2 jobs and still can't make ends meet. So the economy is working for some people. It's not working for others. On the subject of deregulation, I am for the most narrowly tailored deregulation that whatever entity is being regulated, whether it's a farm, a business, a corporation, I am for the most narrowly tailored regulation of it. Not an inch more than what needs to balance safety or consumers or citizens. So the idea of just getting rid of all regulation, I think, is reckless. We're going to spend a lot of time and money, and maybe people's lives are involved in the pendulum swing from no to yes. We need to focus down the center and say, what is the least regulation that we need going forward with it? And with respect to the future of the economy, I'm not an economist, but there are some indications to suggest that this boom that we have had in the stock market could possibly bust. I think we've got a very ill-begotten approach to addressing a level playing field with China, and it's hurting farmers in our district. It's hurting manufacturers in our district. It's hurting small business people. I say from floor to ceiling. I have talked to people who sell stuff about ceiling fixtures and windows, and I have talked to people who sell flooring, and they all say they're going out of business because they cannot ask their consumers to pick up 25% increase in the price of what they bring in wholesale, mostly from the People's Republic of China. So there are many, many soft spots. He's talking about the economy being good. Ask one of the almost 300 farmers that went out of business last year in this district how that economy is working for them. Not so well. Ask those people who have no benefits and are still working 2 jobs to make ends meet. Ask the people that have no transportation, no child care, and no health care, and are stuck in serial dependency on social services because their congressman for 10 years hasn't bothered to do anything about public transportation or some form of reasonable scaled health care and child care so people can get out of the house and into work. The economy is not working for everyone, even at its best, and there are some indications that it could get worse. And if that's the case, we, with our congressmen here, have left these problems, and then they will only get worse if the economy begins to retract.
Down to the last couple of minutes now. Tracy Mitrano, what would you like to talk about in the last couple of minutes? I was going to ask you what's your biggest issue, but if you don't want to, if you'd rather focus on something else, I understand.
Well, our issues in large part remain the same because Tom Reed has done nothing to address them now in this session of Congress, in which he's in the minority and he's frustrated probably, and it's what causes him to make some of these unproductive claims. I'm actually wondering if he's going to run for governor. He doesn't even talk about federal issues anymore. I mean, he's done nothing for us, and now he doesn't even address federal issues. He only talks about state issues. To me, that sounds like a run-up for governor. Well, Mr. Reed, why don't you just drop out of this race now for Congress and go run for governor and let the people of this district have the representation that they deserve. We know better. We deserve better, and God willing, we're going to get better because he's done nothing for us. It's time for a change. I feel it all over this district. As I mentioned, I lived out in Chautauqua. I was just out on the roads that they're talking about last week. Route 86, for example, has been taken care of, and so he creates these arguments. He must have missed the lesson in law school about proximate cause, by the way, with this story that he is concocting about this poor woman, once again, playing on that family grief. It's time for Mr. Reed to move on, and it's time that we got the representation we need and deserve in this district. And so, Brian, what are the issues? Affordable health care, good education, especially student debt. We need to have infrastructure. That is basic. We're also going to preference some environmental issues, particularly the health safety of our waterways. Our rivers and lakes are imperiled now by especially the algae blooms, and we need research dollars. We need people looking at solutions, and we need work across the district, if not across the country, on this issue, and doing it in a way that we balance everyone's interests, agriculture, as well as environmentalists, as well as people who just want this beautiful district to be preserved for their own enjoyment and then for generations to come. Finally, you put all of that together, good resources, education, infrastructure, healthcare, and you're going to have a place where people want to invest. No one wants to invest in a place where there's still an ongoing, unaddressed opioid crisis. They're not going to address in an area where there's no public transportation, where people are not job ready because they're stuck in dependency on social services because they don't have that limited government that is going to give them that ability to get out and get a job, get out to get some education, to have some child care that is reasonably priced, and to be healthy from the start. So in many ways, our issues remain the same. I think we're a little sharper about what they mean, and I know that here's my final pitch to you. Brian, for your listeners. If you make more than $500,000 and you only care about money in your pocket and none of these other issues as a matter of being a citizen in this country, don't vote for me. Don't vote for me because I will not raise taxes on working and middle-class people while I am in Congress. We've paid our share. It's time for the 1% to pony up, and then we can get people what they need in this district. Thanks for having me on this morning, Brian. It's been great.
Thank you so much, Tracy. We just heard from Democrat Tracy Mitrano here on the Newsmaker Show on AM 1480, WLEA, Hornell, New York. News is coming up next. Stay with us.